Boys don't become men simply by getting older. They must be shown the way. They must be initiated into manhood by other men. They need brothers. The world may be collapsing, but God is raising up good men to raise good men. It's one of the great God movements of our time, and you can be part of it. On the Dragon Slayers podcast, we interview ordinary men with extraordinary tales of conquering their fears and becoming fearless, loving men of God. Through their stories, you will hear rich wisdom, practical advice, and the value of brotherhood so you can stand out as a man among men. Warning, we will not mince words. We believe soft men and soft advice slay no dragons. So prepare yourself like a man. This is the Dragon Slayers podcast.
Shain Zumbrunnen, my friend, we've been running together for decades now.
Yeah.
And all the way from Wasilla or Palmer, Alaska. I can't remember which one you're
I'm in Wasilla.
Wasilla, all the way to our studio. Thanks for coming, man. It's great.
Yeah, absolutely.
This guy is he's like the host of Alaskan Adventures, and yet it's just because he likes to get outside. And in doing so, I think you have gathered up every single one of my family members, and we've either been on your boat or on your sleds or in your truck, or somehow, some way, we have been drawing blood from some food that we are about to partake of, and everybody but Sherry got in on it, So we've got and there's all the rest of the Alaskan boys right there. That was the moose. I think this was first blood right here. This was where it all started.
That was the first big game animal. We did a fishing trip before that, but
Yep. I look young there. I didn't even have glasses.
This is Denny sitting.
Y'all look really young there.
I would say, don't we all?
His hair. Yeah.
Denny's sitting on his moose. Is this picture right here?
Yeah, I have a couple of yeehaw moments.
It's awesome.
Yeah, that was a great trip. It really did kind of cement into my life this idea of getting out there and pushing things to the limit. Even if this one came pretty fast, I think it was the end of the first day we were.
It was, yeah.
Yeah, that was a quick one.
We've had a few endurance trips since then.
We have had a few endurance trips, yeah, for sure. I think just the commitment that it takes to pull these things together. I think again and again, I keep looking back on just the devotion of a good friend like you who has pulled together some pretty epic trips. I remember telling my little brother, Johnny, who's 4 years younger than me, hey, how would you like to go caribou hunting? And we went on that epic 2-day journey to, I don't even remember where we pulled off that dirt road. Well, we went down to those 2 airboats. And, you remember that?
We were only 40 miles from the Arctic Ocean.
40 miles from the Arctic Ocean, and Prudhoe Bay, or how do you say it?
Prudhoe Bay, Prudhoe Bay, Alaska.
Yep, we were up there towards where it all happens. Yep, and there's Shain hauling probably my antlers out of there. Probably my back was killing me right there, and you're like, "I'll do it." And
good friend again.
Yeah, there he is, hauling me around again somehow, some way. Yeah, that was a
good trip.
That was a great trip. That was I tell that's a party telling story there. Every time I go to parties, I tell these stories, and people are just like, why do you do that? Why are you so good at this? What are you doing? How in the world are you just pulling this out of your life? You are a busy guy, and somehow you have time to do epic trip after epic trip. How do you do that? Why do you do that?
Me?
Yeah.
Honestly, it's mostly about the people I get to go with. If I was told I could hunt anywhere in the world and do it as much as I wanted, but I had to do it by myself the rest of my life, I probably would never go do it again. I'd go do whatever I could do with the people that I love. So it's purely a relational component, so those are my times to connect. I work like crazy and I do family like crazy, but when we get away, those are the times and memories that are oftentimes the most epic and important. And, people walk in my trophy room at home and, they're like, holy smokes. And I'm like, I call it a memory room more than a trophy room, because it's really about the memories and the people that I got to enjoy the time with, and the places that we got to go, and the prayers and worship time and the harvests. And, it's just the whole cumulative piece. That's what I look forward to.
Yeah.
Wow. It's all about relationship.
All about that kind of starts to eke out that you're a covenant man. You're a guy that builds relationships that really are intended to last a lifetime.
Thank you.
I think we're going to have Joe and Craig and John on here. How long have you known those guys?
Oh, since late 90s, early 2000s. Craig and I have been best friends for well over 20 years.
Yeah.
Most of my memories in that memory room, trophy room, are with Craig Mosley. So there's a few other people scattered in there, but yeah, long time with all those guys.
Super cool. For sure. I remember processing, I don't know how many animals on the tables in your garage.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And somehow there's always a troop of Santa's helpers that show up when it's time to carve up a 600-pound animal. We're gonna, or what's 600 pounds is left of that 1,200-pound animal. Yeah. And it's great stories, great relationship building time. It just a way of life for you guys. You guys just constantly work hard. You play hard. You process everything. Because once you go hunting, you're like, okay, well, let's go. As soon as somebody shoots something, we have a giant job ahead of us.
Yeah. That's when the work starts. You get about 10 seconds of fun, and all the rest is work and sweat.
Yeah, it's like sex.
Yeah.
It's like, started.
And we're off.
There we go.
And now the work has started. Very fun.
I had a question, but I forgot
anymore.
I
didn't question anymore. Took a turn. Let's camp here for a while.
It reminds me of after our Alaska trip, Shane, which you were the man. Like, going back to a funny part about that is, I remember we stayed at your house before we left, and this is the most wilderness I've ever been a part of. Like, being at your house felt like the most wilderness I ever been. And that's at your house. Like, we're just at the house. So we haven't even been on the trip yet. Like, this is just the coat room. Like, because literally was an earthquake that day. I'm like texting my wife, like, there's earthquakes happening. There's like animals outside. And we haven't even left. This is just
animals
There's animals inside.
There was lots of animals inside. That memory room is full.
Yeah. We call that a Tuesday.
Exactly. So it's a way of life. But after that trip, it did something to me. It's like, I want to recreate this thing that's going on. And to that point of lots of work for a little bit of fun, there's a guy who helped organize this trip we did. It was a snow cave trip. This is back now in California. And he said, hey, we're gonna hike out there. You're gonna build your snow cave, and you and your boys are gonna sleep in it. And before the Alaska trip, I would have said no. After Alaska trip, I was like, I could do that. Like, we could do that.
Oh,
and so
kindergarten.
We go and it was epic because the guy running the trip he told me this. I said, I'm in. He said, okay, here's what you're signing up for. It's going to be a lot of work for you. You're not going to sleep. It's going to be very cold, but your kids will have a blast. And I said, I'm in.
Yeah.
Because it felt like it reminded me of like my Alaska trip where you were that guy and I was the kid. Like he's the guy doing a lot of work, prepping everything,
taking your
making sure I wasn't dead. But you're like, I was like, that guy still have a pulse, like he's fine. Yeah. And I'm over having a blast. Like this is the most fun. So I had a new appreciation for like, oh man, like I think it's that thing of like there's a covenant, like you value this. You know what it does for men, and it's worth it. And it's worth it for you. So, can you talk a little bit about the work that goes into planning a trip like that, and why it's so worth it to you? Because I think sometimes men struggle with I know that would be good or it might be helpful, but man, that seems like a lot of work, and I am so incredibly busy.
Yeah. Just the snow machine trip. Talk about what went into getting that ready.
Boy, the snow machine trip, that was probably the biggest one that Craig and I have ever bit off, because not only did we need to figure out how to navigate 10 guys, everybody needed a snow machine. So, at the time,
no one's sharing.
Yeah, at the time, there wasn't really very many options for even renting snow machines. So Craig and I bought snow machines for that trip. We didn't have enough, so Craig and I went and bought 4 more, but a couple of those needed to be completely rebuilt. We spent 3 months before you guys came tearing down engines, taking things in, having cranks redone, having cylinders rehoned, and rebuilding these things from top to bottom. So the snow machine trip was particularly time consuming that way to make that happen, but worth every second, but most of the trips, there is a lot of work that goes into it, but so much of it, especially when you have somebody that hasn't experienced something like that, so much of that is education, trying to prepare you guys, because there's no way you can fully conceptualize what you're going to experience. But whether there's, things that are life threatening, or whether you just get stuck and you burn all your calories,
every breathing calorie.
Just quit and run. Yeah,
that's right. So giving some perspective, giving some feedback, giving gear lists and that kind of thing. But that part is so key, because I not to downplay it to kid level, but using your analogy, Christian, like dad and kid, like my goal when I take my kids out is I want to be safe first and fun second. Like if they are safe and they are fun, they're going to want to go again. And so whatever that takes to look like that, that's my goal. And so having machines that are safe and newly rebuilt and are going to be reliable, obviously things can still happen. We did work on snow machines on the trail going out. We tore one partway down, and I don't even remember what was going on. It was a fuel system issue or something, if I remember right. But, you're sitting there with freezing fingers and gas on your fingers and figuring it out, and it all comes together. But
didn't quit.
Yeah, we're 20 miles to a 70-mile ride. Yeah.
Yeah.
What could go wrong?
Yeah. So my goal is always safety and fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but mostly it's gearless, sharing perspectives, giving some idea of what it's going to take and endure. I do that with my kids too. I sit down, we talk about it. I tell stories, trying to prep them for the physical demands.
Wow.
And, just set a stage, and then we go and create the play.
Here we are.
That was a good day. That was the first trip first animal my kids were on with me.
Yeah.
What is this animal right here?
That's a caribou.
Yeah.
That's November 9th, I think. And it was 5 below. And
with the kids.
Well, yeah, and we should probably clarify if people can't see the picture. Like you're out with your kids for the first time. How young are your kids? They are not old.
Yep. Sophia was 1.5, and the twins were 3. And so the gentleman with me is Dan Pohl. He's a covenant man. Miss him a lot. He lives down in Colorado now, but he was one of those guys. If I wanted to go do something and kids were involved, all I had to do was call, and he was right there. And so my ex-wife was out on a trip, and I was going stir crazy with the 3 kids at home myself. After 8 or 10 days, we had a caribou tag burning a hole in our pocket. So I was like, "Let's go caribou hunting." So yep.
Just pack up the 3-year-old twins and the 1.5-year-old
Yep.
and go on a caribou.
3-year-old twins.
So we threw them in the truck, loaded up some
Dan will go. Yep.
4-wheelers, and fed the kids a bunch of donuts and gas station hot dogs, and we went and shot a caribou, and we just had an epic time. And it's
Safe and fun.
Safe and fun.
That's
Hanging with
awesome.
Dad.
Yeah.
Safe in there, and their bellies are full.
Yeah.
Having fun. That's
No, we have that rack hanging in the memory room, and they look at that and talk about that and that day and the stories with it all the time.
Wow.
Mm.
so.
Go ahead.
So, you were married for how long? With
26 years.
26 years. You guys were trying to have kids for 17?
15.
15 years, and then finally you have twins.
Yeah.
And you get pregnant again, and then it all goes south, and you end up in a divorce.
Yeah.
And that was within the last 5 years?
Yeah, we separated in 2018 in September, and then the divorce was final in 2020, I think it was. 2021, somewhere in there.
Yeah. So, I mean, that was...
Yeah, it's been 3 or 4 years since the divorce was final, but I've been separated and single since September of 18.
You've since remarried.
I have, just in August.
Yeah. And
Beautiful.
and along with your new wife came a new family.
Yeah.
To blend with your family.
Yep.
So talk a little bit about that adventure.
About the blending?
Yeah. Or,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I am crazy blessed to be able to run around too. And Chrissy is phenomenal. And, it's so much, like, for me, so much of the previous 26 years is, you included, you tried to share different perspectives and ideas, and Craig did. And, men came around me, and, there's shared stories, and you try and create what you hear other people have in your own head, that you have that, and yet you really don't. And or at least I didn't. And it's not that everything was bad. There was definitely good times within that 26 years, but in the end, I didn't know what I didn't know, and wasn't even aware of my own challenges and struggles on the level that I became aware later. And navigating that divorce and fears of failure. And I was a pretty passive leader in my home for a long, long time. And it's not that challenge is over. It's, it takes time to come into new areas of healing and new growth and everything. So I'm working on that, and definitely in a way better place than I've been probably in my entire life. But went through the divorce, and then Chrissy and I have worked together for 14 years. And after the divorce was done, our 2 job roles, we had to work a lot closer together, and excuse me, and we just became really good friends for 2 or 3 years. And we started taking her son hunting and doing some things with her kids. And her ex wasn't really in the picture at the time, so the kids didn't have anyone to help and contribute from a male role, and they were just fun to hang out with. And all the kids, my kids and her kids, got along amazing, and still do. So we hung out a lot, and one thing led to another, and just started. She finally was like, "Okay, I'll date you." So I wanted to date her long before she was ready to. Um, so we started dating October, a little over 2 years ago, and then got married in August. And blending the family is one of those things you don't know what you don't know again. And
For sure.
you have this romantic idea of what everything's going to be like, and all the kids get along incredible, and they still do. And they're siblings. They have their moments of challenge, but you know integrating parental roles, and the three younger kids are my biological, and the two older kids are her biological, and building and developing those relationships with the new step parent on both sides brings its own challenges. And so it's good, and we're super blessed, and yet we clash and have challenges with the kids, and then difference in parenting styles and the like. And but the thing that I think and I think Chrissy would totally agree with this, that has been beautiful about this whole journey, is even with the conflict or the challenges that do occur, we have been really, really successful at, her and I, coming back and engaging in recovery after those conflicts, where that is a very new thing in my life. That is something that did not happen previously in my past life. And so being able to come back and recover and keep connection and not have these repeated caverns, cliffs in that journey, and be able to build bridges and stay connected, and still snuggle up and watch a show or lay in bed together with peace, is beautiful. And that's a very new thing for me.
Yeah.
So
good.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a best case of a worst case. I know that divorce is tragic. And yet there is life after divorce.
there is.
There, especially when you know what to do, and you find somebody who knows what to do, and then you both decide to do it.
Yeah.
Here you go.
Yeah.
Finding somebody that you enjoy, and then protecting that is what it's all about, really.
Yeah.
Well, and we found that there's actually, beauty and growth and connection found in the stress and recovery cycle. It's like you have the stress of conflict or whatever, and then navigating through the recovery just increases that connection and that covenant that goes on, as opposed to being so afraid of the stress and afraid of even trying recovery because it was just going to lead to more stress. And now we're able to find, the beauty and the life and the hope, even in the hard days.
Yeah.
So, and we're working on that with the kids, so just navigating those places of stress, between us and the kids that we may have challenges with, finding those places of connection and having fun times, but being able to be vulnerable and respectful at the same time. And, try and engage in that recovery process with them to increase that connection as well. So we're learning, we're a work in progress, but it felt like there was no hope for, a while, even before the separation, and then after the separation into the divorce. And yet, the Lord is good, and I'm happier than I knew was legitimately possible in a relationship. So
Found hope.
yeah, for sure.
Yep. Those were some hard miles. I remember.
Very.
Yep. That was a hard row. So you're a physical therapist. You have a business, employees, about therapists and the front office and all that stuff. You are running hard. I watched your business grow. I watched your business shrink. Is your business growing again, or where are you?
Yeah, I mean, it grew a lot for 8 or 10 years, and then we were pretty solid and stable, and then some things happened. Long story, but anyways, things happened, and then separation happened. We closed 3 of our 5 locations and consolidated down to the 2 primary, one in Wasilla here and one in Eagle River, and we're back in a bit of a growth phase. We're growing within the walls that we have, though. We chose not to expand into other locations right now. So we're pushing a lot of the things here just within our areas and niches that we have that a lot of other clinics don't. So that's given us a lot of strength and stability. And but Chrissy and I have we built some short-term rental cabins and working on buying some more property to add some more cabins and an event center and things like that, trying to expand outside of healthcare. So, we didn't have enough to do, so we took on yet another.
There you go. That's where I was going.
Yep.
Busy guy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I know how hard it is for you to make our Zoom calls. It's just, you're just busy. How in the world are you keeping the adventures alive in all that external demand?
Well, to be super honest, I haven't kept as many of the adventures alive in the last year or two. I mean, we do at least a couple focused ones a year, and I'm taking the kids up. So the same snow machine trip that I did with all you guys, I'm taking the kids up on that next week. So
that's what I mean. That's exactly what I mean right there. Like, I'm gonna take some kids on 150 miles of snow machine ride just for the fun of it.
Yeah. So I'm going home to work on snow machines when we're done here.
That's awesome. There it is.
Oh, shit.
I honestly, with the busyness in life, if my kids weren't the driving factor, I probably wouldn't go so much right now. Just I'm super busy. Craig is super busy. He's building the house. John's building an airplane. Joe's going through some stuff. So like, we have not connected as much as we have in the past. I mean, we text and communicate regularly, and we're still in relationship. But Craig and I used to be out snow machining, 3 to 5, a 3 to 5 day weekend at least once a month, and we haven't done that for a couple of years. But I get the kids out, a couple times a winter for a decent trip, and I took the boys, Chrissy and I, and the boys went moose hunting last fall, and it was just an epic trip. We flew out to the lower Yukon and went out way in the Tules, and both the boys just got, giant moose. They did amazing. So we just make it happen. I try and book things further out in advance now. Now that I'm back to full patient care, which is why it's so hard for me to just schedule things like Zooms, because I've got patients 10, 11 hours a day. I just have to plan further in advance, which is not my strength. Tend to be more of a, hey, the weather's good this weekend, let's go, so I'm just having to be more intentional. In fact, on my way here, literally this morning, I called and booked a flight on Kodiak for November to take the boys or any of the kids that want to go deer hunting. So we're headed down to Kodiak in November to go deer hunting with the kids. So I'm just having to schedule it and plan it far more than I used to, and just trying to make it happen. So, we get out on the boat a few times in the summer. That's pretty convenient because it's just always sitting there ready to go. So we really just have to grab food and watch weather, and we can just hop down there on a Friday night and go Saturday, Sunday and catch some halibut and chase bears or something like that. But that's not too logistically challenging, but it really is coming down to scheduling it.
He's just gonna slide right by.
For
just
him.
catching halibut and chasing bears. Just a Tuesday again.
That's back to Tuesday.
Oh, I love it, Shane.
I think that's what we need to do with your kids, Ben, is do a bear and fish trip.
Absolutely.
You're gonna have to hurry up and schedule, because Charles is talking about it now too. So
let's just blend them.
First come, first serve.
Yeah.
Hey, Dragon Slayers, you're going to want to pick up Danny Silk's new book, The Way of the Dragon Slayer, 7 Reasons Men Need Brothers. If you're listening to this podcast and you're going, man, I need some more of this in my life. I need to know what those 7 dragons are. I need to know how to slay them. And I need a template, a playbook to gather men around me, to get my own 12 so that I can experience what I'm hearing about on this podcast. Then you got to get the book. Here's another reason you need to get this book. Every single person who pre-orders the book right now is going to get an exclusive Zoom interview with Danny and John Eldridge. I mean, talk about a couple of mighty men of God. They're going to impart some wisdom on you and some practical advice that's going to change your life. Everyone who pre-orders the book gets that. But guess what? 250 people who pre-ordered the book are going to win exclusive Dragon Slayers merch. We're talking about single release merchandise. You're going to get a hat that will never reproduce again. You'll be one of the OG, original gatherer, a legacy founder, member of Dragon Slayers. And here's why you definitely want to pre-order the book. Only when you pre-order the book at dragonslayers.co, that's dragonslayers.co, one lucky person is going to win an epic trip with Danny and his group of Dragon Slayers. We're going to take you to Wyoming, and you're going to become truly alive in the presence of amazing men of God, and it's going to knock your socks off. All you need to do to get involved, to punch your ticket for all of that, is go to dragonslayers.co, that's dragonslayers.co, and pre-order Danny's new book, The Way of the Dragon Slayer, 7 Reasons Men Need Brothers. Do it now. I love how you're talking about these trips being a vehicle for spending time with your kids, for creating memories with your kids, for imparting things to your like. You said something earlier that I'm still wrestling with in my mind. Seeing your memory room and all these things, knowing that how much you hunt and you love it. You're like, oh, I would never if I could go anywhere in the world, hunt anything in the world, if I had to go alone, I would never hunt again. It's like, whoa.
Yeah.
Whoa.
Yeah.
So it's not about you going to scratch an itch for yourself with something you really enjoy, although I'm sure you really enjoy hunting.
I do.
It's really about, I go because I spend time with people I love and I make memories with people I love.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, wow, filling up that memory room is, I mean, it's awesome to probably get a new animal or a first time animal, but knowing you, it's really about the story that's behind each one of those trophies.
Totally.
Is like, man, that was that time. I remember that thing that happened. Yep. And so when it's like, how do I find time in my busy life to do these things? Is I don't make time. I prioritize my time. I will do a thing here because it's part of who I am and what I do. It's like it's so clear to me when you talk, like this is part of your identity. This is something you believe on a really deep level. It's like, it's almost like I have to do it. Like it's who I am. Danny always says, like, my behaviors flow out of my character. This is my character on display. I do what I do because this is who I am. I don't have to try to force it. I make it happen.
I actually got that from the Bible.
Did you?
Yeah.
Danny's so Bible.
You can put you on like that Michael Scott.
Watch over your heart, issues of your life. Yeah.
But I was like, mine. I'm not like, I have my epic Alaska trick, and I need to add more of those. But as what I saw in you sharing that and go, oh, for me, it's like a lot of my adventures with my boys. There's on the court or on the field. My office at Living on Purpose is full of baseballs and footballs and my kids' jerseys that they've signed, and it's my trophy room. And I think about it the same. It's my memory room. And like one of my favorite ones is like I have my son's All-Star jersey framed, and I help coach him. And I go, that was that season where he lost his confidence and did not want to get into a batter's box. But at the last game, he faced his fears. He got in there and got the hit, and it was like that meant, like, I love looking at that jersey because it reminds me of a really sweet moment with my boy.
That's it.
And so I'll make time to coach their teams and to be involved as I can, because it's a lot of work and I don't need another job, but I will take that on because I need those memories. I need that time spent. So it's just beautiful 100%. Hearing that you do the same thing. It's just, and ours aren't so life threatening, but they're still pretty epic.
it's just a different avenue to do the same thing, Blue.
But he didn't.
Yeah, totally.
I'm gonna take a little bit of a different direction, Shane. But I was thinking about you today as we're preparing for this, and I think it's Malcolm Gladwell talks about everyone's 10,000 hours. Like when you spend 10,000 hours on something, you become a standout person. And I've been on, I think, 2 trips. There could be, I should remember, but it's 2 trips for sure. Kodiak and then the snow machine trip we keep talking about, where I often say there's 2 places where I almost died, and I'm a different man because of it. But on both those trips, the standout thing about you is you know so much about so much. That's just like, how does he know so much about all these different things? And you probably spent 50,000 hours in these different areas just honing in your skill and pairing that today with the motivation. Like, it's not just to be good at something, it's to be good at something so I can create memories and create these experiences. So I think for a minute, just thinking about even men that are listening today, there's going to be men in different phases of that 10,000 hours and staying focused on the true motivation of why. So my question in there is, what would you tell someone that's in the middle of working that thing, and how do they work through the hardships, when they get snagged, they get stopped? What would you tell someone that's feeling the discouragement even?
That's a good question. I mean, to be super honest, even with all those hours, I've been in that place over this last 2 to 4 years, Ben. Divorce didn't just change my marriage; it changed everything.
Yeah.
All of our relationships, or all the relationships I had that I can think of, pretty much every single one was a couple. A component of that relationship involved, my ex-wife and myself with another couple. And so while I'm still in relationship with a lot of those people, the dynamics are still different, right? It's not the same. And in fact, even within this last, couple of years, I've like literally told Chrissy, like, you hit those walls and you're just like, I'm done. Like, let's just, this is too hard. This is too hard. Like, I'm ready to just have a mass liquidation sale, sell all this stuff, sell the business. Let's go buy a small house someplace else and just retire and be done. Because it's hard. And then I come back to this place of like spending time with the Lord and recognizing like, okay, that's not actually going to make me happy. And that's not who I am. I'm, isolationism, or, backing off on relationship, or trying to figure out what relationship looks like with some of these folks now post divorce and with a new wife, is hard. It involves challenging conversations and vulnerability and those pieces. But I just keep coming back to the Lord, talking to me about who I actually am and actually stepping back into that when I'm ready. But I do take breaks. There's been times that I have intentionally not done trips, even with my kids over this last few years, because I just didn't have it in me. And I'm starting to do more and more, and we're starting to recover from some of that. But I guess what would I tell them? The only answer I have would be, I just keep going back to the Father and asking him who I am. Because my perspective of who I am in those hard times is often not very truthful or factual. But I don't know what other guys all battle with, but I know at least some of us, battle with that sense of failure and not being enough, and, in a lot of areas. And I am no different. That has been a huge struggle for me. And then fear. It's interesting because Daniel and I were talking a while back, and I rarely experience fear in the woods, but you put me in my house and I experience fear regularly. It's like, just that's not because Chrissy instills it. It's like, I'm afraid of not being enough. I'm afraid of not being the best father, or the father that my kids need, or the husband that my wife deserves, or things like that. It's the pressures I put on myself. And then those are the times like, okay, I've got to back off. I've got to take a step back, re-engage in my journal, re-engage in some worship, get some truth, regather, with you guys, and, shoot some texts off to Craig and John and those guys, and just like, okay, I need some prayers. I need to come back and get some grounding. And so I guess my encouragement would be, gather your dragon slayers, get back to the Lord, get back into the place where you are able to hear truth and re-experience or re-solidify who you actually are. So I'm not a hunter. I'm a relational covenant man.
Well said.
That's who I am. I enjoy hunting, and it's an avenue to go do these things and pass on those 50,000 hours of learning and that kind of stuff. And that's some of what I enjoy. The last thing I want to do is come across arrogant or cocky when I'm out there. I want to be able to set a stage for people to have fun and be safe, but also learn. And my boys to now, Tristan's 18 and he's loading up his snow machine tomorrow and heading up, 150 miles away to go lake trout fishing on the ice, and, go do it by himself, and, do some adventures. And, some of that's because of what he's learned from things we've done, and some of it's just trial and error. But,
wow.
Anyways,
yeah,
I guess that's what I would say, Ben. I don't know.
Great. It's great, Shain. I think that last. I just want to repeat that last thing you said. That I'm not a hunter. I'm a covenant man, a covenant relational man. Which I think men listening, and even myself hearing that, I can place that anywhere in anything I'm doing. That thing can show up because I'm not the thing I'm doing. This is who I am because of who he is for me.
Yeah,
so good.
This guy's doing
that. It wasn't always that way. Boy, in my younger years, I took a lot of pride. I worked at a taxidermy shop. I was a taxidermist before I was a therapist, and did that for, I don't know, 8 years or so, something like that. And then did some fish guiding on the side and that kind of stuff, and we'd have people calling the shop all the time asking, where's the fish, and asking about hunting spots and all these things. And boy, as a 18, 20-year-old guy, having people calling you asking for insights and wisdoms and all those things, I'd battled with some pride and got some things way out of kilter for a while, but that was a long time ago. But it's easy to have happen. It doesn't matter whether it's sports or, work or whatever, that place of pride can really jump in. So
beautiful. That's great, Shain.
On that, maybe a question in there is, going back from having young man's disease, which all men suffer from in the young age, this idea of it's about me. And, you said you're getting adoration and praise early on, and that just strokes the ego. And then you looking at you now, it's very clear, you're a covenant relational man that, Danny says this, like I love this about a men, they live so they can give. They build for the benefit of others. Like everything you're explaining right now and is about how you are doing for others and how it gives you life because you are pouring life out into others. This might be a big question, but maybe, what's that transition like from it's about me, I'm selfish, I'm arrogant, I'm prideful. And then is it a long journey, or was it a short click or a moment where you go, oh, this is not, I shouldn't be living this way. I need to become this man, which is who you are today. And there's a lot of years in there, so I don't remember my life story, but what was that moment for you of clarity of this is not the right way to live. I actually do want to, my best life is in serving others and benefiting others. And what was that transition like for you?
I think early on in my first marriage, when I transitioned from taxidermy to going to college and everything, there was a lot that transpired during that season of life. And only been married a couple of years. It was old. It started off really rough. And, so I went and got some counseling, and, during that couple of years was kind of when some of that transition began, at least. And that I was suddenly became really aware of, like, okay, there are some things here that I'm choosing, a hunting trip over time with my wife, or, even if she's okay with it, I'm not necessarily asking, hey, does this work for our family at the moment? Even though it was just the two of us, there wasn't this collaborative component. It was just, I want to do it. I'm going to go do it because I want to do it. And so I became really aware of that. That was a fairly quick transition once I was open and, to receiving wise counsel and to what the Lord wanted to do there. And then, I still hunted and I still fished, but I did include her in that conversation far more. But the relational piece then really was after I came back from college, and there was just this shift, and Craig and I met, and gosh, we just hit it off like crazy. And that materialized over the course of a couple of trips. Like, okay, this is a guy that I want to spend time with. Like, this is a guy that I want to learn from, but we have a lot to to share back and forth. And it was finding my guy. It was finding my tribe. It was a big part of that. And so the way we collaborated in these trips was just not selfish. It was like, what, I want to see you succeed, whether I shoot a moose or don't shoot a moose, like, and we both had that perspective. And I'm not even sure. I think it was just a growth thing, to be honest, Christian. I don't know that there was like this epiphany. And now, that's just transpired, or continued to grow. And man, it's like I've harvested, there's only 2 big game animals in Alaska that I haven't harvested. So that's my goal. I want to round out that experience for me and do that. But now it's like, gosh, I get so excited when my boys verbalize something they want to go do, or when Ben texts me and is like, hey, I want to do this, and come and, bring my son and experience something like this. Like, those are the things, being able to pass that on and help other people facilitate. I think that's just been a growth thing as I get older, and it changed too with having kids. Like, there was this transition for me of having kids that I wasn't in this young man syndrome pride place for a long time, but having kids now, it's like suddenly it doesn't really matter if I ever shoot another moose. I want to see my kids, have opportunity and do that kind of stuff, so this year was a good example. My goodness, we were in one of the best moose spots I've ever been in my entire life. And, I know a lot of people don't even have perspective. We're seeing, 10 to 20 mature moose a day, out where we were at. And that's just like unheard of. And both boys killed trophy bulls. And I was super content to walk away and not even look at one through my scope. It was just like the trip was completely fulfilled because I got to pass that on, and they got to carry moose meat. They got to carry a quarter and experience the agony of falling and, and the discomfort. But it's just been a journey. There's been pieces and parts that have been like epiphanies. I would say the pride piece was kind of an epiphany time. Of shifting out of that and having awareness of how my actions were affecting other people. But that growth place has just come with age and experience, and I think some of it too, lots of times Craig and I would spend time before we go on a trip and ask the Lord what he wants to do on the trip. Is there something he wants us to speak into the atmosphere or the land or the the native people in the area or things like that. And suddenly it shifts your perspective that it really, maybe this trip has nothing to do with you. Maybe there's this entire thing that is way bigger than you getting a moose or putting any meat in your freezer. Maybe you're there to release life over an area that has had, tragic suicides for generations. And we're there for a purpose far greater. And that just creates a whole different perspective. So it's been a journey more than an epiphany, but there have been epiphany moments.
Shain, let's talk about one of those journeys. You are out with Peter and Naomi, your twins. It's a big investment. It's a big hunt. I think that you're with one of your friends. I don't know if it was Dan or who it was, but he ends up with Peter, and you end up with Naomi. And kind of build that story out a little bit, and then what's the takeaway there?
Yeah. So Peter, the twins were 7. It was June of 2020, COVID season. So in Alaska, most people didn't hunker down. They headed to the woods and went and played. So lots of social distancing, but we didn't stop doing anything.
Already.
Yeah. Yeah, Peter, well, both the kids, but Peter especially, he wanted to go bear hunting. So in May, he and I actually flew out, and he got a black bear when he was 7. And then we decided to head up and do some grizzly hunting a couple of weeks later with 7-year-old twins. Pretty smart thing to do, right?
Yeah, take a little bait.
But Naomi wanted to go. Peter by now had shot a moose and a black bear, and she's like, I got to catch up, Dad. So Peter wanted to hunt too, and I can only hunt one kid at a time. And so I was like, well, I need some help. So I've been blessed. I had men like Craig and Dan, and the gentleman in that picture, his name's Travis, and men that I trust with my kid's life. It's, you want to know how much you trust somebody. Well, in my opinion, if you're willing to let them take your 7-year-old kid grizzly hunting, and you're 2 miles away, you probably trust them a lot. And I'm blessed to have men in my life that I trust to that level. So Travis is one of those guys. So we went up, and the scenario was I had a friend that was a guide, and that spring with COVID, Alaska shut down all the whole guiding industry. So no non-resident hunters were allowed to come in. So all these guides now have no clients. And this friend of mine, he runs spring bear hunts off bait. And bears are very habitual. So if you set a bait one year and you get a whole bunch of bears coming in, they will come back to that exact same spot the next year. But if you don't put that bait there and you wait 2 or 3 years and then you put a bait back out, those bears are likely not to come back. So he was setting baits just to feed bears, just to keep that habitual nature for his future clients when they open things back up. So he offered for us to come up and let the kids do a trip. And so we went up, and Travis hunted with Peter and I hunted with Naomi. And unfortunately, Naomi did not get a bear. So we had a really big boar come in. It was 3 a.m. She's asleep in the chair next to me, and I'm trying to wake her up, and this bear's feeding away. And I'm like, Naomi, I've got the gun in the tripod and everything. Like literally all she has to do is get on the gun and pull the trigger, right? It's like done. And she'd get up on the gun, and I'm like, do you see it? Do you see it? And she'd get back off the gun and look at me like, yeah, I see it. And she'd go right back to sleep. This went on for like 5 minutes or 10 minutes. And anyways, long story short, the bear finally left, and we didn't get that bear. But the night before, or the day before, we had been out stalking these baits, and we were sitting up on this knoll having lunch, and we see there's a cow moose and a calf down about 600, 700 yards from us down on this pond. And this bear comes up over the hill, swims the pond, and kills that moose calf. And that's what these bears do in the spring. They're looking for moose calves for feed, and they're a predator. It's just what they do. And then that sow continues to chase that cow moose all over that little bowl. And we're about a mile from the bait that Naomi was hunting, about a mile from the bait Peter was hunting. And about 5-10 minutes later, a big bear comes up over the hill, and he's following that sow because bears breed in the springtime. So it's their rut. And so I start, this is one of those educational times for the kids, right? It's like, too much going on in the moment to get them down on these bears. But I'm like, okay, we're right in between your two baits. So these bears are probably going to come to one of your baits. So you kind of need to think about which of these bears are you interested in harvesting, because if one comes, they're both going to come. That boar is not going to leave that sow. And Peter's like, Dad, we have to kill that sow. She's a calf killer. We've got to get that sow. So he's sitting in his blind with Travis, and this sow comes in, and 7 years old. He gets on his gun, and then this boar comes in, and this boar is significantly bigger. He's a trophy caliber bear, and Peter wants that sow. He's like, we got to get that sow out of here. So that little guy, 7 years old, put one shot into that sow, and she died right there in front of that barrel. And he about 100 yards away, but that boar got really aggressive. He figured out where that noise came from, and he started charging. He charged that blind 3 or 4 times. And Travis, he didn't shoot the bear, but put bullets in front of him and steered him and got him out of there. And meanwhile, I'm sitting 1.5 miles, 2 miles away, and I can hear all this gunshot. And as a dad, I'm like, excited that hopefully Peter got a bear, but I can hear the difference. The gun that Peter's shooting is smaller than the gun Travis is shooting. You can hear that difference in the gunfire, and I hear multiple rapid shots, and then I hear shots later. It's like your mind's going crazy, and you have no communication. So it's like, well, do I sit here with Naomi and keep hunting and not rob her of her opportunity, or do I go check on my son? And I chose to trust my friend, and I stayed with Naomi and trusted Travis, and so that boar finally backed off, and they ended up just going back to where we were staying, and we went back and retrieved that sow later in the morning when we were all together, just in case that boar was around, but which he wasn't. But it's one of those things of having men that are wise and trustworthy and experienced and godly that, I can trust with my kids in a situation like that. I'm blessed more than most, I think, because I don't just have one, I've got multiple. So
there you have it.
Yep.
Is there some part of that story where Naomi's got a bull moose in her scope or something?
That was a different trip. So that was a year and a half ago. Naomi, she loves to go. She loves to go. Like, that little girl will go anywhere with me. She's been, even though she expresses that she wants to get, an animal, but she still hasn't harvested anything yet. There's a component to which she's just so tender, like it's hard for her at the same time. And so she was like, okay, I think I'm ready. And so we took her on a moose hunt up off the Yukon River, not far from where I took the boys this last fall. And I was with another buddy. His name's John, super good guy. And first time I've hunted in this area with him. And so John already got his moose, and we're going up the river. early in the morning, just a beautiful, crisp morning, and come around a corner, and here is just a tank, giant bull. He's on the left side of the river. We pull over to the right side. And, it's one of those mystical experiences. It's probably like 40 degrees. So you got the mist coming up off the river, and it's just calm. Like it's like your perfect moose morning. And, so I hop out of the boat. I've got this little tripod that I put her gun in. I clamp it down and look through the scope. Yep, everything's clear. I get it right on this bull and calling her up there real quietly. And she gets up there, and this bull is just standing there. He's just looking at us. I mean, we're 125 yards away, not a long shot. And he's probably in the top 5 of biggest bulls I've ever seen in my life. I mean, he's giant, and he's right on the beach. Like we don't even have to pack him. And Naomi gets on that gun, and she steps back, and she just starts to cry. And I'm like, oh no. And like, baby, what's going on? She's like, I don't know if I can do this. Like, it's okay. It's okay. Just take a breath. You get to choose. Like, just take a breath. And she gets back on the gun, and I thought she didn't pull the trigger, and then she steps back, and she's got tears streaming down her face. And John's sitting in the boat holding on to bushes so he doesn't float away, and he's looking at me. He's like, what are you doing? And I'm like, just give me a minute. And this bull is just standing there. He hasn't moved a muscle. And so I take Naomi by the hand. We just stand up. I mean, this bull can see us. There's no doubt he knows we're there, And I just walk her away from the rifle, about 20, 30 yards, and we just sit down in the grass, and we just take a minute. And it's like, baby, what's going on? And like, I don't know that I'm ready to shoot anything. And like in that moment, I was just like, it's okay. You get to choose, and you do not have to kill something to spend time with me here. Like you get to choose. And if you choose not to shoot this moose can walk away. I will not shoot him. This is your moose to let go or to take. And we talked though, so like under the age of 10 in Alaska, your child has to harvest on your tag. So if Naomi had pulled that trigger, I can't legally shoot another moose. She fills my tag. So we continued that conversation though of like, okay, if you choose to not harvest a moose, I'm just letting you know that I will probably shoot a moose at some point on this trip, but you don't have to. Are you okay with that? She's like, yeah, absolutely. I'm totally fine with that. Like she just did not want to be the one to shoot that moose. And we got up, we walked back to that tripod. I took the gun off that tripod, and that bull turned and walked into the brush and walked away. And it was like, we came home without that moose, but it's one of my favorite memories ever in the woods, right? It's like this place of connection with my daughter. And, it's not about that you have to be out here to kill something to spend time with me. It's like, I love that you are here. I shot a nice bull later that afternoon, actually, and that little girl's climbing up on top of that thing, lifting the head, carrying meat around. Like it had nothing to do with an animal feeding our family. It was that she wasn't the one ready to take its life yet. But it was a special moment.
That's the story I was thinking about. That's a pretty unusual story with your 7-year-old daughter.
Yeah.
Not the father-daughter stories that you classically read.
Yeah.
Well, Shain, buddy, thank you so much for just sharing your life with us. Thanks for being such a covenant man. I mean, well done. You're just doing an awesome job. And I appreciate your friendship and all the strength that you poured into my life and all the servant heart work you've done to usher us into adventures and introduce us to things that us California boys would never ever have done had we not known.
It's
So much
not.
so that Brittany wanted to turn as well.
Yeah,
Yeah.
she did.
So
she wanted a
great.
shot at. I wasn't. I was going to jump on it when you were talking about being a taxidermist, but now that you're around, I want to. Yeah, let's just throw this up real quick. It's a picture of Brittany's bison that she got up at Kodiak Island on a trip with just her and Shain and I. We went and she said, "I'm sick and tired of hearing your stories about your hunts. I want my own." I was like, "Oh, hey, Shain, what do you think?" He goes, "Bring her up. We'll get a bison," which is, but what I want you to see that you may have not seen is what happens at our house every Christmas. My moose, scarf. But here is what
That's awesome.
Your work looks like every Christmas at our house is he's got a nice gold chain going, and
our house looks the same. Everything they can reach, they put tinsel and bulbs and everything on.
Santa hats.
Yep. The muskox was covered in tinsel and everything this year. So.
It's great.
So your taxidermy work is sprucing up my house.
Awesome.
Thank you, my friend.
Thank you.
It's you.
So great.
Thanks, Shain. You're the man.
Absolutely. Thank you. It's good to see you guys.